welcome back to the show. Another episode of The Coding Careers. As you've been tuning in, really appreciate the support, by the way, from the audience, and the feedback that we've been having with the community. It's really been helping engineers make that transition, and it's been quite interesting actually as well, because the audience has changed slightly. There's now a lot of engineering leaders that are listening to the show, that are wondering, I'm head of engineering and I want to step up to CTO. How do I go about that? So it's been quite interesting. And same if you're an EM to a head of engineering, obviously it depends on the structure of the role, depending on the business. But it's been quite interesting to see how lonely it can be at the top, is what I'm finding as well. Especially if you're sort of head of engineering or CTO, and a lot of the time, if you're the most technical person in the business, you can't be scaring the stakeholders or the investors. You've got to just pretend you know exactly what's going on, even if you don't. But so I think that's been interesting. But yeah, I've got a really interesting guest opposite me today, and we're in Melbourne as well, which is great. Cold, but great. But I'm opposite Kumaresh, who's the head of engineering at Bendigo. And yeah, maybe if you'd want to drop us a bit of an intro, Kumaresh, about yourself and the business that you're working at, and then we can sort of roll on from there.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for inviting me. It's a really great opportunity that I have. So about myself, I'm leading the digital space in the Bendigo Bank. So when I call the digital space, it's the internet banking portal in Bendigo and Adelaide Bank. Predominantly leading the engineers across that space that covers all the customer interaction, the interaction with our customers who have been there, as well as the partners, as well as the staff portion there. That's the way that we are structured in. Before this, I was playing the similar role in managing the engineering team across the commercial division in ANZ Bank. So that's the brief about myself. So I've been throughout my entire journey, I've been an engineer. All the while started with mainframes, then into the APIs and microservices. Now exploring the things into the AI. So it's been a big journey across almost like 20 years now. I'm almost touching 20 years with this one.
Yeah, and I saw that you started at Tata
Yeah.
as a programmer,
Yep.
and you had a bit of a small transition through there as well, coming through the ranks. I
Exactly. So I
noticed.
started right out of the college and then joined Tata. So that's where my very first journey was.
Yeah,
So started in the mainframe. So mainframes as a database administrator. So mainframes by itself is a massive portion, right? So when I traveled over to US, I met with all the IBM folks over there. Each one had an experience of about 25 years, right, in mainframes, almost like 28, 29. And my experience was like 10 months. So that's the way the interaction was. They looked at me like a junior kid in the block, right? So that's the way it started. But then that was a massive learning with people over there. But looking back right now, after 2 decades, if we get stuck with the same technology for around 25, 30 years, we easily get outdated. That's the perception that changes quite a lot now, right? At that time, we looked at it like a wealth of knowledge, big knowledge, and that's how we learn from them. But right now, getting stuck with one technology might not be a good thing. So it's a massive change in perspective
yeah,
from then to now. Yeah,
yeah.
that's how it is. The tech industry has evolved in that manner.
And obviously, we've all heard of the buzzword. I don't need to say it, but it begins with A. Um, you mentioned there that obviously things have changed. Is it easier to be a leader today than it was 10 years ago?
It is. It is. So, to a lot of extent, the inhibitions of the experience, what you require to be a leader, has been taken out. right? So right now the market is very, I think it is more prone to the talent what you have and the skills what you bring. So even if you acquire it at a pretty fast rate as an young person, you could easily step into the leadership there. Back in the old days, the experience mattered, the number of years behind it mattered. It was more like any other industry, right? The IT industry was more like any other industry. I think right now it is more like a leader among the industries in adopting the change. So the industry has evolved a lot in good direction.
Mm.
That's the way that I would look at it.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And in terms of you've had a few different transitions. When I studied your background, um, and from I'm sure you moved from like an architect to a chapter lead.
Yep.
As far as I can remember. But then you went chapter lead to head of engineering.
Yeah.
Which was the most difficult transition, and why?
The transition wise, when the most difficult one, I would say, when I took the line management, that is
Okay.
when I switched in from an architect into a chapter lead, right? So that's when we become responsible for other engineers' growth, their careers, their aspirations, all of that put together, right? Um, it's a bit of a scary thing because we need to meet their expectations. The expectations is coming from both the ends, right? One is from the engineers whom we are accountable for. Other thing is there are people that whom we need to report into, right? Both the areas. And the thing is, it's more like in certain cases we need to fight with the people whom we report into to get what we want for our engineers whom we are accountable for. So that's a big transition. Earlier, for playing as an architect role, it's like an individual contributor.
Mm.
I think this is my perspective, and this is what fits the enterprise. So I stand for it. That's the way it is. But when it comes to the line management, it's more complexity there. It's not clearly black and white. There is quite a lot of shades of gray there. So we need to look at it, and there is quite a lot of empathy that we need to display over there, and we need to learn that one, right? So that's the perspective that was a bit difficult, but uh, once we learn it, it changes our perspective altogether in everything what we look into it.
Yeah. And empathy definitely keeps coming up in terms of leadership. It's obviously a very important attribute to be a good leader. How do you become more empathetic? Because it rolls off the tongue and people talk about it as if it's easy to be empathetic, but when the pressure's on,
Yeah.
the kitchen's hot, there's plates everywhere, things are moving.
True.
How do you remain empathetic in a stressful environment?
Yeah, that's very hard, and it is even more harder for engineers, right? Because engineers think everything in a logical perspective, but empathy is more psychological in nature. It's pretty easy to say to people that if you want to be a leader, just turn it around and look at it from their shoes, right? The people who are there. But it is very hard in reality to actually get that maturity in place. So what I would initially say is try to be more open in listening. So the first thing in the entire leadership is listening. The empathy starts from there, right? Make sure that you listen to what the other person wanting to say. In this case, the engineers whom you are responsible for, right? So that's the first step in reaching out. So that breaks the ice. What happens is, in quite a lot of scenarios, the people wouldn't open to us on what their actual issue is. The issue might be lying somewhere else. All we might be looking at it is symptom. And the problem is these symptoms will be aggravated, and especially it will be putting a lot of pressure on us because due to these symptoms. So what we need to do is establish the trust, listen a lot, try to put us in their perspective. So always give the benefit of doubt towards that person, right? So if there is even a slight possibility of doubt, give it in their favor of the engineers who are reporting to you. So that's the way that you could do the empathy. And the second thing of the empathy is, one, we listen. Second, we need to display to the engineers that we have listened to it, right? It's just not sitting opposite to them and then hearing what they are saying. We should also demonstrate that we are relaying their problems across in the other areas, and we are trying to get the solutions back to them, right? So that is also quite important. So take it seriously, do relay it across where the problem is, and if you have to stand for them, right? That's the key thing, and that's our job role too. So do that, and then get their confidence up.
Yeah. No, interesting. Well, I think there's some really good tips there that Kumaresh has provided us there. Stepping in someone else's shoes. It's easy to do when it's on the top of your mind, but I think it's having the discipline to do it when things are flowing and
Yeah,
there's quite a large amount of people that you need to be empathetic to as well.
true, true. It's very hard, and especially with the people around us, right? With all these symptoms, they form their opinions on the top. And with that opinions, people will try to get towards a decision and probably ask you around why we haven't landed in the decision. So all of that we need to keep in mind. The thing is, push it aside. If we have to buy the time, get the clarity around, and then do the stuff.
Yeah,
Right. That's what is required.
yeah, okay. So if we was going back 10 years in time, and I might be off with the years, but just bear with me. And you was an architect, um, but then you knew within the next 6 months you was gonna step up into that leadership role in terms of people management. Knowing what you know now, what would you do? What would you have done differently
I would have prepped myself quite a lot.
in terms of
So the thing is, I will tell you what happened when I stepped into the role. For the initial couple of years, I've been questioning myself: have I taken the right step? Right. So that's a big thing. It's quite common for first few months to question us, but if it goes beyond an year, then that is really a big question: have I really did the right took the right step or not? So I would have prepped myself quite a lot. It's pretty easy to be in an individual contributor role, right? So I would say that even now I will tell that it was pretty easy and pretty comfortable, right? It's more like you don't need to worry about the things. You say what strikes your mind, what's the right thing to say, right? So that's all you think about it, and then you go with it. But when it comes to the leadership, there's quite a lot of things that we need to work upon. The very first thing feedback that I got on myself is I need to translate what I'm saying. So basically, I'm putting it in too many technical jargons. When I'm talking with the leadership, not all the leaderships are engineering leaderships, right? So we need to translate it across. So that's the first feedback that I got it. And second thing is, what's the expectation on us when we step into that role is should be clearer. There are quite a lot of difference between a huge organization, a corporate, versus a smaller company there, right? So be clear on that one. So I was with an engineer mindset. It is just like, if you have something right in front of you, get set, go and implement it, go and do it. But that's not how the things work in a huge corporate, right? So there are the things are not there. It might seem to be there. You need to convince quite a lot of people, quite a lot of leadership there to get the thing, get the funding, get the people in place and everything in place. So I was not equipped with those things. So stepping back, if I get a possibility to go back in the time machine, I would definitely say that there is a quite a big journey, right? So be prepared about the leadership. The leadership is all about communicating it to the audience, the right audience, in the right manner. So that's the first thing that we need to learn, and put a clear plan, the 30, 60, 90-day plan, what you wanted to achieve, and then probably collect the feedbacks. I was a bit late in collecting the feedback when I stepped in earlier. Collect the feedbacks as quick as possible, because that gives valuable information there. We
Yeah.
might think that we have given everything and we are doing it in the right fashion, but we might not.
Well, I think that's because that's the way that you would like it to be described and communicated to you. So I think automatically you
Yes,
think,
exactly.
this is how I communicate because why is he or she not getting it? This is what.
Eh,
So, and I think that's probably that's probably a big challenge in itself at corporate level because within a startup or a scale up, obviously you've got different people, different responsibilities, but there's less of them.
Yeah,
I think in a corporate, how you would speak to a sales team,
yeah,
or how you'd speak to HR,
yeah.
or how you'd speak to investors, and then
Yes,
engineers, just so different.
exactly. Exactly.
So that's a really really interesting point.
It's altogether a different set of audience, and their motive and the outcome, what they are trying to look at it as, is totally different. So it's not even the other side of the coin. It's altogether different. So we need to keep those things in mind.
Yeah,
So that's where the communication becomes extremely critical,
yeah,
and the translation is very important there.
yeah. Okay. Now there'll be a lot of. I can imagine there's a lot of noise that you have to block out in your role. Okay. Um, I've got quite a few friends that are at your level in different corporates, and I hear about it all the time. If if you're looking at stepping into sort of head of engineering role, head of technology role, at a corporate or a startup, scale up, whatever it is, what do you do effectively um, to manage your time?
It's a big thing, managing time. I would say this problem is there for
Yeah,
everyone across the area. But then we need to know where we need to spend our time onto. If I put my priority, my the default list, what I have, the first priority is my people. So if there is any issues, anything that's been uh, bubbling up from my people, that gets the first priority there. So by default. So I would be looking at that one first. Other than that, there will be a lot of other requests that will be coming in. At times, we'll be overflowing across. Even if I look into my inbox now, I'd be having like 1,000 mails unread, right? So the things are certain mails, it's not expected to be read by me. I would be just in a copy there, right? So quite a lot of things will be there. So I would say that the critical things, what we feel, what we do know, act on it. If there are other things that are popping up, sometimes we will put it into the back burner. If it is really critical, people will come and follow it up with this, right? People will come and give a nudge with this. And then you could open it up. But then the prioritization plays a critical role there. How I prioritize people first. People, empathy, and our own people is the first thing to address on. The second thing is the environment in which they are going to operate it on. That will go the next. Third, our company as a whole. Basically, that's the critical thing, right? So we need to make a balance between that and every other things. So that's how we take a look. Look at Take a step back if the things are opening up, flowing in quite large. Take a step back, look at it. Which one is important? Then make the decisions on that one. If there are for the things which we could not operate, just push it back. There's too many on the floor, right? Just push it back. The good thing about it is earlier that we push back, people understand it better rather than holding it up and then seeing that we could take it to the later point of time and then pushing it back. People will be more frustrated on that one. It's better you push it back at the beginning itself, saying that we are too much, we are cluttered with too many things. There are too many things for us to operate. It's better that we push it down the line
yeah,
for some other time, right?
yeah. Okay. All right. Interesting. And there was an interesting conversation that I had yesterday actually with someone that said, um, when you're sort of technical and you're a contributor, you go from being one of the boys to the boss when you go into the leadership role. Because all of a sudden you was with that team, you was having a good fun, and then all of a sudden you're at a different level and you're managing that team. Then when you are managing a team and there's a problem in the team with an individual, who seems to be spreading the problem through the team, um, like a rotten apple in a box. How do you best manage that um, in the most professional way possible?
Yeah. Um, to be honest, the first thing that I always keep in mind, don't manage a team, just lead the team, right? So if we think of we trying to manage it, then we will screw it up. Don't manage the team, lead the team. Yes, there are scenarios in some cases, some instances, right? One or two people might be a bit different, might pull the team into an opposite direction. The first thing that we should do is have a one-on-one conversation with them, right? Um, just with the open mind. It's not with the thing saying that I found a problem. This is what the problem it is.
Yeah.
No, don't do that one. Go in with an open mind. Ask them, is there anything that's been bugging them, right? So that's the very first thing. Before that, I would say that if a problem had occurred only once, don't blow it up, right? So most probably the person by themselves would have understood that this had created problem. They could have rectified it. Give that opportunity first. If that didn't happen, then have the chat. Have a one-on-one chat with them. Understand what has been bugging. If there might be instances where we cannot understand them, right? So that is also a possibility. At that is the point when we might need to say, I'm seeing an issue here. So this is an issue from my perspective. So what do you think about it? And then ask a solution from them, right? So if we want to implement any change, the solution for the change should come from the person who are implementing it. That's when they are buying it, right? If you put a solution on them, then that is forcing it. That there is a major probability that forcing a change will not work. It has to be bought, right? So it is easier to implement a change if it comes from them. That's the key thing.
Okay.
Have that conversation with them. So that's the first thing. There is a possibility, there is a low possibility that that might have also not worked, right? That is when you might need to take an action on. The thing is, that person is pretty important. What we need shouldn't forget is the rest of the team is also very important, and that is a bigger mass compared to one individual or a couple of individuals there, right? So if the problem persists, isolate the people there. Make sure that the tasks are there that will not impact the other team, right? The entire team. That's how I will take it into. Then try to have the conversation more with them, right? So try to understand more, try to rectify, be clear in what the outcomes that you are trying to achieve, right? So most of the problems what I've found had happened because of the lack of clarity there. So we might find a person is being not doing what we want, but it is also our responsibility that we should have been clear in communicating what we want, right? What the company wants. So that clarity is in a lot of places is missing, and especially when an opinion is formed. That's where I'm telling you that perspective changes and everything changes. And what we are doing is totally against what we should be doing.
Mm.
So have the conversation there. In most cases, I would say that 90 to 95% of the cases, we could have the conversation, clear the things, and then we could get them back on track.
Yeah.
So I would do everything possible in it before we make a call around that one, right? Because that will be a big regret if we may make a call pretty soon. It will be a big regret, and more worse is we are giving a wrong signal to the entire team. So tomorrow team would be more averse in trying something new, in averse of failures. So that is also something we should keep in mind.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. All right. And I asked this question to um, Paul Keane from Tyro Payments, and he almost fell off his chair. But I'm interested to get your advice or feedback on this. But he mentioned that you've always got to explain to stakeholders why you've spent so much money. on tech, and it's hard to justify as well, in every business. How do you sort of effectively justify delivery? And I seem to get this response every time I ask the question. Does that mean you haven't got an answer?
There are three things, right? So in any architecture, just imagine like a funnel. The topmost portion is the business architecture. Second comes the application architecture. Third comes the technical architecture. The technical architecture, we call it as algorithmic, right? So we do know clearly this is the thing, do use this stuff. When it comes to application architecture, it's heuristic. We have the experience. This is the one we will put it in. When you look at the business architecture, we call it mystery because everything is mystery there, right? How the return of investment and all of that is being put together is a big mystery. One thing why we call it as mystery is because we are not clear from our technology side of it how the business is been working through, right? So that is also a reason why we call it as mystery. So it's more for us when we call it say that how I justify the delivery. You have spent X amount of dollars, and what did you get out of it? It's a combination of two, because the business side of it is something that I cannot define it fully. From the technology side of it, I can easily define a few of them. Most of them would be like operational cost, reduction in operational cost. That's the day to day running cost. But when it comes to a capital expenditure, a capex expenditure there, it's more like adding new things. I can give some data points to it, like how many customers have been newly added. It's very good.
Yeah.
It's a very excellent data. How many customers have been fascinated about this new feature? It's an extremely good data. So those sort of data could be propped in there. But to stitch a story based upon what we did to what did to the company as such, this business architecture should play the key role there.
Yeah.
Right. And that gives all the other things like return on investment to everything put together. And what should we do next? The roadmap towards it. So those things are part of the business architecture there. So always have a collaboration with the business thing there. At times we would feel that it is mystery and then we just take a step back, but it is story. Two things. One, it gets additional funding, which is very critical. Otherwise, we cannot run.
Yeah.
That's one part. And second, it motivates all the entire team which had worked on it. It's only once in a while the team gets to know that this is the way that we impacted the customer.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And that's a really good point as well, because everyone gets caught up with extrinsic motivation, but intrinsically, especially with engineers, they want the pat on the back
Exactly.
when they've done a good job. And sometimes that, well, a lot of the time that is more important than a pay rise.
Exactly.
Self gratification, wake up in the morning, jump out of bed, have the Weetabix, feel good, go to work.
True.
That's priceless as well, isn't it?
True. I would say this what you call there's nothing wrong in being bragging about our job, right? So only when we brag about our job, we get to know how we are impacting the end user. The end user is the customer in our case, right? If the customer over there gives a good feedback to us, then naturally we are doing right things. If the customer feedback is not coming good, then there is something that we need to work it upon, pull up our socks and work it upon. And that's a direct feedback rather than anyone else giving a feedback to an individual. This is a direct feedback. This is how we impact the people right out there. So that's a key thing.
Yeah.
And that's a very good motivator, in fact, especially if a good feedback comes from the customer as such.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a good answer. I felt like you knew that question was coming.
Not exactly, but this is a question that we have been facing every now, right? So whenever I go out and seek the funding there, the first question that pops up is, how does it matter, right? What it is going to change? And I need to be prepped for this
Of
one.
course, yeah.
Otherwise, I can't get the funding, especially from the finance folks.
Yeah.
You need to put it in the right form.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Um, all right. Now, going off topic slightly, but I know that especially the audience that are listening, as a software engineer, they're always wanting to know, what does a good software engineer look like? And it's always good to hear different perspectives as well. What does a good engineer, in fact, what separates an average engineer to an
Mhm.
exceptional engineer in your eyes?
Yep. There are key things. There are a few indicators that I look out for, right? Even whenever I'm talking with an engineer. So there are key, what I call it as the characters for that one. So if you ask a good engineer who has been working on an application for a year or so, what's your regret with that application? The engineer will give a huge list of regrets about it, even if it is a greenfield build, right? Because it's most about the decisions that were being made a year ago, right? We didn't know these, so that's why we did. So if you have been asked to build it newly, I would be doing these list of things differently,
Right.
right? So that's a good indicator right there, right? So because we are a good engineer is so much involved onto it, and then it feels okay, I made a call sometime back without knowing what's coming up after 6 months. Now this is a big regret there.
So what if they say there's no regrets? Is that a bad sign of an ego?
Yeah, it's a sign of an one. It could be a sign of an ego, or second, it could be sign of a dejected feeling, right?
Yeah.
So nothing is going to change, sort of a feeling.
Yeah. Okay. That's a
So
really good question.
yeah,
I like that.
that's a good thing to understand from them. And key for an engineer is the learning, right? So the things have been changing pretty rapidly. So back-end engineering changes quite a lot. Front-end engineering changes it even more faster pace,
Mm.
right? So every 2-3 months, the things have changed quite rapidly in front-end engineering. So things are changing quite a lot. And now with cloud and things going out there, the way we have turned the DevOps, entered into the platform engineering and all of that, the changes has been quite significant there. So the learning is a key thing. Um, when I started, the language mattered quite a lot, right? So COBOL, learn COBOL. Java stands for 10 years or 15 years. Now, if I look at it, there is a huge list of languages. Say Golang, Rust, what else? Node.js has been significant now. So quite a lot of things have been there. So even for one to maintain one platform, we do have at the minimum 2 to 3 languages, programming languages sitting in there. So learning is critical. We cannot expect an engineer to have the entire skill set before stepping in,
Mm.
right? So you step in and then learn. That's the thing. And third is collaboration, right? So this is the basic of working with a team. So don't be there are I have seen some good individual contributors, but when it comes to a teamwork, um, there are issues there. So always understand the team's height or the team's potential is all about how we collaborate among each other. So that's the key thing. It's more like accessibility, like down to earth and helping the others, and that's how we learn more. So that's the thing that I would look at it.
Yeah.
So those are the key attributes.
Are you listening? You heard it from the man himself. So they're the things, and I think as well, just being like you said there, just being honest and being genuine. And if you've made mistakes or you've learned in the past, that is worth a lot more than you think. Bringing that up and go, well, look, I did this wrong. I should have done it this way, but I've learned from it.
Yes.
Because that way, the person's being honest with you. You know they're being genuine. You know you can
Ex-
work with this person, and you
exactly.
know that they're able to put their hand up and go, you know what, I made a mistake, but I've improved.
Exactly. Talk about the failures,
Yeah,
right? Talk more about the failures. The reason is what we learn out of failure is a lot more than what we learn out of doing things right way,
yeah,
right? So, and failure is good thing. So always we call fail fast as the approach, right? Do talk about the failures. That's the way we learn a lot.
yeah,
And with the change in stuff, there are quite a lot of tools that are now coming in. quite a lot of tools which does different aspects of the work there, right? So the thing what an engineer now needs to be understanding is how to use them efficiently and learning them,
Mm.
right? Those are the things that we will do. For the same set of things, we might be using different set of tools in different companies.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. I might be doing the same CI/CD work with a set of tools in one. When I move into another company, it will be a different set of tools, but the concepts are the same. So it's more about learning how the different tools are there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, interesting, Kumaresh. I've learned quite a lot in this episode, and I hope the audience have as well. But um, thank you so much for providing your perspective in terms of the transition, but the other key things as well in terms of what makes a good engineer, what makes a good leader. And yeah, I think there's some valuable information in there. So really appreciate you coming on the show. And yeah, it's been a pleasure to have a chat.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for inviting me across. It's a good thing to share it across. We talk to people in different forums, but most useful conversations happen in the hallway, right? And this one was a very useful conversation that it happened this way. And if it could reach, that would be great. Thanks a lot. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem.